Hello, and welcome to Adventures with ADHD, where I shine the spotlight on other fabulous ADHD folk and they share their stories with the intent to entertain, inspire, and give advice. So, no pressure there. Today we've got Pam. Hi, Pam. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks so much for being on. Um, let's get started. Where are you from, Pam, and what do you do?
I'm from Lancashire. I've got a long history of being a mental health nurse, but I've just recently qualified as a counsellor, so I'm working for a charity. But I still do mental health work as well in substance misuse.
Right, okay. Wow, thank you. And before we delve a bit more into the work you do, tell us about your journey, your ADHD journey, and where you are right now.
Okay, well, I've always felt different, and when I look back on my school history, I never could concentrate, never could sit still. Used to get really frustrated that people were passing me by, and I knew that I could have outshone them if I'd worked harder.
Mm.
But I've always felt different. But 2 years ago, I wasn't sure whether it was the menopause or what was happening to me, but I was making all kinds of mistakes. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't sleep. It all came to a head. My children, who are adults, were wondering whether I'd got dementia or whether it was the menopause or what on earth was wrong with me. And when I had a meltdown, my friend who's diagnosed ADHD, ASD, suggested I completed a screening form, and I was in denial, saying, "There's nothing wrong with me. Of course there isn't. I do screens on people like that all the time in my job, and I can sit still and I can make eye contact." And she said, "No, I've been watching you for the last 6 months and wondering when to broach this with you, but you definitely need to fill one of those questionnaires out." So I ended up doing both questionnaires and thinking, "Oh my God, this is me. This is me all the time." And especially with the childhood
Wow.
stuff, I thought, "That's me. I used to do that. Oh my God, I used to do that." So I ended up looking into getting a diagnosis, but of course the lists are so long with the NHS.
Mm.
I didn't want to worry my children, so I decided to go privately. And no surprise there, I was diagnosed with both conditions. So that was
Wow.
the end of last year, November,
Yeah.
December. I was diagnosed with both conditions.
Wow. And
Yeah.
how did you feel when you were diagnosed?
Um, I felt I already knew really. The more
Mm.
when I did the questionnaires and thought, "Oh, this is me," I started to read into the conditions and identify with so many areas, and realize that although some people can't maintain eye contact and can't sit still, because I can, it's because we're all on different levels of the spectrum. And that's why
Mm.
there's a spectrum, because people are so different in their manifestations of it. So the more I'd read
Yeah.
about it, the more I thought, this is me. It's not going to be any surprise when it comes back as positive. So
Mm.
I kind of, it was, how can I say? It was enlightening because it allowed me to let myself off for so many things I'd beaten myself up for over the years. All the
Right.
things when I'd go, "Why did you do that job? Why did you get involved with that person? Why did this? Why that?" Now I realize it was to do with being impulsive and easily led and easily bored. And it was all those symptoms that are ADHD symptoms. I'm not blaming those for reasons for what I did in the past, but they are the reasons my thought patterns were the way they were those years ago. So it was kind of
Yeah.
enlightening, and I felt like a weight had been lifted in a way. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and you mentioned that you do kind of screening questionnaires when you were working as a mental health nurse.
Mm.
So why do you think in the first instance you didn't realize that that was you?
Because on those questionnaires, they're very medical model focused, and they are focused on males, because males are the ones that display the ADHD symptoms that people tend to focus on, such as aggression, being disruptive in the classroom, you know, behavioural issues. That's what they're written for, aren't they? Those questionnaires, those sorts of behaviours. Whereas your girl with ADHD is likely to sit quietly and mask it and not want to draw attention to herself. And so they're primarily written for males. And when I was screened with those questionnaires, I said to the psychiatrist, you need to adapt this for a female version, because females aren't always disruptive, aren't always aggressive, aren't always, you know, a lot of the time they are able to sit still. They might be going backwards on the chair and tapping the leg all the time, but they're not behaving outwardly as men are. So when I did these screens, I was doing them in male prisons. And I was a mental health nurse on a unit for men that needed a period of stability before they could go into psychological programs. And they were saying to me, I can't sleep, I'm pacing my cell, I can't sit still. And when they were sat opposite me, changing positions so many times, I'd say, have you ever been diagnosed for ADHD? Oh, I think I was as a kid, and I was on Ritalin for a while and then it stopped. So I'd do a screen on them and they'd all score full marks. And then I was able to refer them to a psychiatrist who had an interest in that. And she used to put them on atomoxetine, which helped them so much. And then they'd say to me, oh, I sleep now. And I'd say, yeah, you're sitting still and you're making eye contact with me. And, they used to say the results were so good. So when I looked at those questions, I thought, oh, yeah, I do interrupt people and I do hate queuing and I do get impatient and I do finish sentences. But all the rest of it, I'm fine with. I make eye contact, I sit still. But it doesn't take into account all the other things that girls do, such as we're impulsive, we have low self-esteem, we have poor relations. There's so many other factors that should be on those questionnaires, but they just focus on the behavioural symptoms. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%. And thank you for sharing that, because this is a common theme across what's going on right now. People just had no idea. So many women later in life are realizing that this is what their challenge is, and and their strength has been all this time. And like you said, enlightening. So you worked in prisons, and would you say that a lot of the men in your prisons were diagnosed or undiagnosed with ADHD, in your opinion?
I would say that it was half and half. A lot of them had been diagnosed as children, but stayed on maybe Ritalin for a while, and then the mums hadn't carried it on, or it had got into the teens and they'd stopped taking it, or something like that. And then there would be a lot that had classic symptoms but were never diagnosed. So I'd do a screen on them and be able to get them in front of the psychiatrist with the special interest. So there did seem to be a big link between, I mean, I don't want to diagnose because I'm not in that role, but there seemed to be a correlation between crime and ADHD, because you're getting your easily bored, easily led, those sorts of things that belong to ADHD, aren't you? Restlessness, boredom. I can imagine people when they're feeling like that as a teenage and they're with a gang of people, it could lead to crime, couldn't it? And I've seen that as well. I've done women's prisons and I've seen the same sort of thing with women. It was just different in the women's prison I was in, because there wasn't the same psychiatrist there that I could fast track them to. It was just easier with the men because that's where she worked.
Right. So were you able to refer the women to be assessed?
Well, it was a different healthcare system and it was a different sort of referral system, whereas in the women's prison, the mental health team weren't as focused. They were like kind of, yeah, we'll get round to it. Whereas in the men's I was in, it was a different healthcare, and they were like, yes, that's fine, we'll refer them. So they were more. So I could make referrals for the women, but I don't know what happened to them. whereas with the men, I could follow them through.
Yeah. And that's again, that's really telling, isn't it, about the different areas and different services available to
Yeah,
people.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And what is it you're doing now? You've become a counsellor now.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a counsellor because it was always that part of my work, sitting on a one-to-one with somebody, that I enjoyed the most. And when I was working in the prisons and doing clinics, I'd be ending up getting people's life stories when they were just down to have the bloods taken or something. And I'd think, I'm doing more good listening to his childhood than I am. Anyone could take his blood for 5 minutes, but this is doing more good. Maybe this is time I did it, because I was always planning on doing it, but I had children and I changed jobs a lot when I got divorced because I needed to be in jobs that enabled me to be in the playground, and
Mm.
enabled for me to make enough money to get them things, because my husband gave me the bare essentials. So I made sure I was in jobs where if they needed a bike, I could buy them one. Sorry, I've forgotten what the question was.
Oh yeah, your role as a counsellor. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're in their 20s now, my children. So I went to uni 2 years ago, got my diploma in counselling, and now I'm working for a trust which is for well, it's for children, yeah, children and adults who've been sexually assaulted and rape and any kind of trauma related to sexual assault. I don't see the children because I would find that quite upsetting. But I see adults, which is equally as upsetting, but not kind of as bad as little kids from 4 upwards.
Yeah. And it just shows that, I see this all the time with ADHD and autism, um,
Mhm.
comes a lot of care, a lot of compassion
Mhm.
for other people and, empathy. So all of
Yeah,
those skills, and qualities are vital, really, aren't they, in the roles you've been doing?
yeah. I guess we want to look after people in a way that we'd like people to look after us.
Mm, yeah.
And I don't know about other people, but myself and friends that I've got that have ADHD and ASD, they've all experienced some bullying and
Mm,
people taking advantage of them in life and in work and things. And I think we attract people that take advantage. Um, so when you get older, I feel it's nice to kind of give back really and look after other people and try and build them up and
yeah, absolutely. And that's so needed, isn't it? When people are at such a low point, then, there's people like you that can come along and help them along their way, which is lovely. So, you're writing a book, I hear.
yes, I'm writing a book. It's because in 2021, when my son was getting married and all this came to a head, there was there was things that came out about my relationship with my children's father in the past, and I didn't realize that my eldest son was angry with me about something that had happened, and it came to Christmas time, and we had a massive fallout, and I hardly saw him, and it upset me so much. I lost weight. It was awful. It was just one of the most awful things. The fact that he wasn't speaking to me was actual pain. Um, with it being Christmas and I didn't see him and he wasn't speaking, it was just horrendous. So when we did speak after Christmas, I said to him, I told him the reason what had happened with his father and why, and so I said the reason that you don't understand, you didn't understand what I'm saying is because you don't know me. Because a lot of my life I've been masking how I really felt. And he said to me, I did remember you crying a lot as a child. And I said, I thought I hid that. I thought I went outside and did it. And he said, no, I did see you once or twice and wonder what was wrong. Um, so I decided that I would write my biography because I thought then they could know me. They could know why I made the decisions I did, and the upbringing I had where I didn't get any advice on anything. I didn't even get told what periods were. Thought I was dying at the age of 12. I got no advice or anything. It was just hard work. Whereas they've had everything that I've not had, self-esteem and everything, because I didn't get it. So I decided to write it. But then I thought I'm going to write it as well from an angle of before and after my diagnosis, because I got diagnosed at the age of 59, and that is really late. And I thought some women be out there feeling like I am, feeling like I was, thinking, what the hell's wrong with me? Is it the menopause? Have I got dementia? What's the matter with me? And they might read it and they might think, I can so identify with that. So that's the purpose of the book. And I'm going to call it something like 59 or the number 59 or something like that, and get it published to help someone.
Amazing. Yeah, lovely. And like you say, somebody will be in a very similar position, wondering what's going on. They read that and go, this could be what's going on. So a really kind of helpful thing to do for you, for your family, and for other people. So what I ask my guests at the end of every interview is, what advice would you give to people that have just realised or realising that they could be ADHD or autistic? What tips or advice would you give to them?
I would say embrace it, because this is who you are now, and this is who you've always been, and you're not weird or unusual. You're just different. You're just wired differently. We are just wired differently. We're not freaks. We're not anything abnormal. We are just wired differently to everybody else. And don't be hard on yourself. If you feel exhausted, come home and do nothing and don't feel bad about it. I only unmask myself with people I can trust. People that I know are going to be accepting of my diagnosis. I don't tell everybody, because not everybody's welcoming of it, and not, but you'll soon find your own tribe as well. You start to identify similar women, and that you just gravitate towards each other. And I have so many friends now that are ADHD and ASD, and it's so nice.
Yeah.
And actually, the other day I had a new client in a counselling situation. She'd just come to this charity. She was so anxious she couldn't sit still, and she said, "Sorry, it's just that I've got ADHD." And I said, "So have I." And when I said it, she just visibly calmed down and sat still. And I thought how lovely it was to do that.
Amazing.
And then she came the other day, this week again, and there was no anxiety whatsoever. I said to her, "Are you okay with the environment? Is it the light too bright?" She's no, thanks for asking. And I thought, I wondered how other people would know to ask. But it's because I would go into a room and think, oh, that light, I don't like that, I don't like that. So it was good that I had that insight for her.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, Pam, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and share your story so openly and honestly. And I'm sure so many people will get a lot from it. So let me know when the book's out, and I'll share the links and stuff. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Susie.